Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
Let me twist on this a little bit. I think a lot of people don't realize, and maybe I'm just off my rocker here, and maybe, I don't know, I am a lot, but I don't think a lot of people realize is that this market's been so severely manipulated since 2008 that they don't realize it. Because prices have been artificially kept low anyways. The free market would have made prices go sky high in 2008 and 2010, 2011, more so than they did. We never allowed a true free market correction to happen. This goes back to the bank meltdowns. This goes back to even maybe the precursor to this was the dot-com meltdowns.
Too big to fail.
Yeah. And the airlines, we talked about it. Where the heck is my refunds from my profit shares from the airlines and the dot-com companies and the Enrons and the MCIs and the telcos and the dot-com meltdowns and the bank meltdowns and the mortgage meltdowns and the savings and loans meltdowns. Remember those, Lens? Where is all of my refunds where's America's sovereign wealth fund? And see, that's kind of where we're at right now, 2008. These prices that people go, these prices that people have been paying pre-COVID, they were manipulated down. They were kept artificially low. So now we got to a point, Len, where we're paying what we should be paying probably. Because inflation's catching up with the level of debt. It's proportionate, is it not?
Sure, it is. I just think that there's a lot of credence to the idea that back in 2008, if we would have let all of the calamity happen at the same time, we were talking about Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, AIG, Chrysler, Ford, all of those companies fell at the same time. I think what would have happened is the United States credit rating would have gone from an A, not to a B, but to a C minus or a D because of the cascading effect of it happening at the same time. And so then the country's ability to issue bonds go away because then it becomes too risky to have our debt. And then people want to call in their debt from around the world. There wasn't enough currency to pay everybody back if they would have recalled at the same time. It would have created another Great Depression, because the way the Great Depression started, as you know, but just for our audience, the Great Depression happened because everybody went to go and claim their banknotes at the same time, and there weren't enough to go around, and it collapsed the system. The same thing would have happened, but on a more catastrophic scale, because other countries would have said, "Hey, I need my gold back. I need to go ahead and cash in my bonds right now." And if everybody would have come in at the same time, the United States would have ceased to exist as a world superpower. So the easy part is to suggest after the fact what could have happened if we would have allowed the market to to take its own natural course. But the problem is because it was a systemic failure in epic proportions. It's not just one thing. This was across insurance. It was across finance. It was across industry. And in terms of the auto industry, it would have hit so many different sectors of housing all at the same time. We would right now, if everything would have taken its natural course, China right now would be the superpower. I hate to say that, but I believe that.
I disagree with it all.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I disagree with all of it.
Okay.
Because I think that those cascade of effects would have affected everybody. It would have been worldwide. Because here's the reality, Len. If Americans aren't buying anything from China, how the hell is China going to exist?
Good point. That's a very good point. That's a valid point.
And then furthermore, that economic...
but they still sell to the rest of the world, though.
I get it, but 2008 was a global recession. It wasn't a United States recession. It was a world meltdown. Okay, this thing affected everybody. Okay, so everybody fell off the mountain in Everest. Like click, 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 click. The daisy chain, everybody came off. Okay, the wheels came off everything, and in that moment, everything had to be backed up because everybody knew that if everything slid down the mountain, everybody was going. And the reality I think about it is that was the moment that the powers that be looked and went, oh oh my God, the curtain's about to get undone and pulled back, and they delayed it. And guess what? The curtain's being unpulled right now. The difference is it's very violent. And that's why you're seeing the violence you're seeing today. That's why you're seeing the discord that you see today, because it's now the old powers that be, the oligarchs and the monarchs of the world, the aristocrats of the world, they're losing their power right now. The world is changing before our eyes. We're seeing it. We are seeing it. And these guys that almost lost in '08 and delayed it, they inertia dampered their way all the way down to where we're at right now because they're selfish. And they said, oh, you know what? We don't want to get out of this thing now and collapse now. We want to slowly bleed out and die. At the expense of everybody.
So I have a zinger
here's
for
the
you.
reality. Okay, because here's reality, Lennon.
I got a zinger for you.
And this is your fault, Lennon. This is your fault. Because 15 years ago, you gave me a book called Creature from Jekyll Island, and it talks about this kind of crap in that book. And this all goes back to the central banking from 1913s. And when that was created, because if you go back to, and isn't it funny, it says the 4 main distractions in that book is climate change, aliens, and like, those are 2 that I remember. Climate change and aliens are always going to be distractions, right? To distract people from what's really going on. And what's really going on is the aristocrats of the world that have been controlling the world are now finally losing power. And it's taken since World War II, post end of World War II, for them to lose their power. And that's why NATO has to fall, because NATO, by 90% of NATO, think about it, Len, 90% of NATO countries are aristocrats. They're kings and queens in some way, shape, or form. Right?
Not 90%, but
go ahead, Len.
Okay.
What's the zinger?
Well, your point kind of led me away from it. So the timing isn't good anymore. So we'll just jump to another one, because when we're talking about China and the United States, and one of the topics that you brought up to talk about was the Chinese espionage and be somewhere in between 12 and 18 different states around the 2020 elections. And so I wanted to get your perspective on that, because it's a interesting that you brought that up. So I want to hear what's so important in your mind about that, so I can react and respond to it.
Are you talking about the China spies?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the mayor of Arcadia being a Chinese spy?
That's exactly. Well, you talked about the 12 to 18 states. And having, So talk about that. I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, you heard what happened last week, right? They arrested or she stepped down, or I don't know what they did with her. Mm-hmm. Right. But 2 years earlier, her husband was arrested for being a spy, right? You know that, right?
The fact that she got into office is beyond me. Yes.
So what the hell is going on there in California that we allow like the mayor's husband to get arrested 2 years before, or they were just waiting. They were like, they knew, and they were just going to give her a rope, like the Pace Picante commercial. Let her get a rope. Like they were just letting her hang herself, or what? Like, it makes no sense. Look, I'm not an intelligence officer or official or pretend to understand any of these things, but it's just weird. And then, and all these other people, it's just a domino effect. But yeah, they did an investigation, and what they found was they're now seeing that between 12 to 18 states were compromised. Their voter rolls or voter systems were compromised by Chinese influence during the 2020 election. And so go figure, Joe Biden got elected. I wanted to see if that's what you were suggesting. So are you trying to say that because of that tidbit of information that the elections were rigged, and because of that, Trump should have won, but Joe Biden won instead? Is that what you're saying? Okay, let me ask you this way. What I'm saying is this. Here's what I'm saying. If you compare the voter rolls and the voter data in the election, okay, in 2016, okay, and then you compare that data to the 2020 election, and then you compare that data again to the 2024 election, the data spikes for some reason in a weird trajectory towards the Democratic Party in 2020 versus 2020, 2016 and 2021 or 2024. Where did all those extra voters go in the next 2 election cycles when we still had record turnouts? How is it that Joe Biden had all those extra votes that didn't all of a sudden turn up anywhere else? Why is that? And also, to your point, you're telling me again that Joe Biden was more popular than Obama? And then furthermore, the numbers don't add up. There's more voters than there are in the rolls. And it all happens during that election only.
Okay.
So the data anomaly disappears all of a sudden.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Okay, so
and
first,
here's the thing.
So
let me why it disappeared, Len?
Let me jump in.
You know why it disappeared, though? You know why it disappeared? As soon, I guarantee you still would have seen the same type of manipulation, but Joe Biden dropped out, and the Chinese or whatever, the powers that be, knew that Kamala's not as cozy to them as Biden is, because the Kamala family's not receiving kickbacks.
Bro, like you're making like conspiracy theory level claims, and let me tell you why. Okay, so all right, so you said 2016. Okay, 2016, you had two terms of Obama. He leaves office, and then you have Hillary versus.
Bro, that was the most overhyped candidate. Like Hillary was like the darling.
The
first female president, Len.
But bro, let me
Biden.
Explain. Okay, let me finish, man. Let me finish.
Okay,
all right.
Wait for you to nail it down, dude.
All right, so so here's the thing. First of all, I don't believe that the country was ready for a female president. I believe that the polls were
I think they were
wrong.
Just not Hillary.
They were wrong, and I believe that she went in and she was overly confident, and nobody believed that an outsider like Trump could come in, and he started speaking the language. He's a master as it relates to media, and he's a master as it relates to messaging, and he spoke a message that resonated with people who felt disenfranchised and people who felt left out of the political system. And he came in as an outsider. And because he already had name recognition, he snuck up because nobody even expected him to get out of the primaries. That had nothing to do with the Democrats. That he was a complete, utter shocker as it relates to becoming an actual nominee. Everybody presumed that it was going to be somebody like Jeb Bush because his brother had been the president and his father had been the president. Everybody just assumed that was going to happen. So he came in with the big head, and then Marco Rubio came on sipping his water and dipping below the mic. That was a bad look. So he was out of there instantly. And so Trump came in. That's the only
thing you remember
with his bro. That's the point.
That's the only thing you remember. It was funny though. I remember that.
That was hilarious because Trump pounced on that and he made that something known. That was good strategy on Trump's part. So I'm not saying that negates who Marco Rubio is to me now, but back then he had no shot after that was over, especially once Trump pointed it out.
He was done for.
Yes. Okay. So now let's go to the 2020 election. So Trump gets into office. He's impeached twice. He was very polarizing. So you had a lot of people who loved him and you had a lot of people who hated them. So when you have polarization that happens, there's going to be way more activity in the voter polls. So more people come out. And that's the reason why Biden gets elected. And so Trump says that, hey, I was cheated. So, okay, there were how many investigations, Chris? There were more than 30, less than 70 investigations. I don't know the numbers, but there are a whole bunch of investigations and none of them found any voter fraud, nothing, no widespread voter fraud, because if that would have been found out in the courts, the judicial leg of the government would have overturned it and Trump would have been the president back then. Rudy Giuliani tried to figure it out. He had a whole group of people who tried to figure that out. All of his lawyer friends and all that stuff. They didn't figure anything out and it all got kicked out. So you cannot point to any piece of evidence that suggests that there was voter fraud, because here's the problem. If there were widespread voter fraud, then our democracy's done. We can't, because there's not a system we can trust, because the moment trust erodes, that's why I believe that his message, his being Trump, is a very dangerous message, because in a democracy where it survives and thrives on trust in the legislative process and the voting process, you need that. That's a cornerstone. And the peaceful transfer of power, that's a cornerstone of a democracy. Okay, so now let's go to the last election. So Trump gets into office. You have Kamala Harris, who ends up running, and she didn't even go through any of the primaries. So even from the Democratic Party, people within her own party was like, you weren't a worthy candidate. And she wasn't a worthy candidate because she didn't go through the right process. And they made a strategic error in allowing Joe Biden to run for a second term. When he ran the first time, he said he was only going to run for one term. And then when he started showing evidence of cognitive decline, he was done. And so the moment he had his gaffe, this is exactly what I said. I wish we were podcasting back then. The moment he had his gaffe, Biden, he was done. President Trump was already going to win. There was nothing Kamala could have done. And I said that to everybody that I was talking to. They were like, oh man, what are your thoughts about the first female president? I was like, no, not going to happen. She didn't go through the right process. She didn't go through the electoral process and win her primaries or any of that stuff. And then she waited till 100+ days, like 105 days out. That's no time. And then when she runs her campaign, she's bringing in all these superstars and all of this stuff. They're not talking about any of the issues. You're just trying to use popularity. That is belittling to the intelligent individuals who vote based on policies. So independents like me, I voted for the lesser of two evils. I wasn't happy with any of my votes. And so I'm not the type of person, I have not yet voted for a Republican yet. But I'm open to voting for a Republican if I believe that the policies align with my values and they align with my fiscal and my social beliefs. As long as more of them align, because Trump's not running again because he can't. Hopefully, wink, wink. Hopefully, he can't.
You said you seen that guy, that Asian guy that does all those predictions.
Yes.
You've seen that he said Trump's going to be third term.
He did. I just can't believe. I heard him.
He said that. But there's a lot of people that have said that. There's a lot of people.
Do you want to see him run another time?
Heck,
honestly,
I don't want to see him learn. Okay. I want to see JD Vance, or I want to see Marco Rubio.
Okay, all right. So we'll see.
I want to see those two guys.
But
because here's the reality. I want somebody who's in their mid 40s or mid 50s. I don't want these old guys in the office anymore. I need youth in there. This is ridiculous. I agree. Nobody. It's like, come on, you guys are dead corpses in there. Like, how could you even you have zero? Like seriously, stop this already. But yeah. No, I don't know, Len. I see your point on that one, but I mean, the lesser of two evils was Trump versus Kamala, or Biden.
I don't know. As a black man in America, I can't say I'm not calling Trump a racist. I'm going to be very clear about that. But as a black man in America, and looking at his actions and how he speaks about different groups of people, there are not a lot of pieces of evidence that would align with my values of who I am. And so I have to look at the world through multiple lenses. I look at the world through the lens of a Christian. I look at the world through the lens of a father, of a husband, of an entrepreneur. And as a black man, those are important. And if any one of those are significantly tarnished, that takes a toll, man. And I have to factor that in. So I can't divorce myself of that. And that's why I didn't vote for him. But do I believe that all of the policies that he enacts are terrible? No, I think a lot of the tax codes he's put a lot of extra money in my pocket. I would definitely tell you that.
Aren't you happy about that though?
I'm happy.
Cause for celebration.
Yes. But if I look at the world through an individualistic lens, I'm happy about that at one point, but I can't look at the world through that other people around me. Like for example, I was watching, and I'll turn it over so we can go to another topic. I was watching a podcast, shout out to Tom Bilyeu. I really follow a lot of his content. And he's done well for himself. The Quest bars, he made his billions. Yeah. So he made great money, sold his company, in that billion mark, and he's done well for himself. And one of the things that he talks about is, look, I'm going to be fine regardless, but I believe that
I think I know what episode you're talking about. I think I've seen it.
Okay, yeah, like we need to balance the budget, and we need a healthy middle class, and that's, I'm not middle class, but I have to think about what makes the country overall better, and I think more of us need to look at the lens of how are the policies impacting the greater good so the country can continue to thrive? Because if you have a small percentage, we're good, Chris, but we don't represent the large majority of people. So fiscal policy has to align for the greater good. And we have to think like that.
But I understand that. You're absolutely correct on that. But you and I also changed or climbed the ladder. You and I also moved from, whatever station in life we were in to where we're at right now. So we made a conscious decision to go from no job to a 9 to 5, and then from a 9 to 5 to moonlighting as an entrepreneur. And then, and in your case, you had a few more steps in there. You went to school. I didn't. So you made those decisions to get in debt and take risks to get in debt on the risk of an education paying you back what that product was sold to give you that return on that educational investment. You did those things. I did the things that I did. I made the risk. I sold my cars. I sold my watches to open my office and pay my rent and ate, skipped lunch a few days out of the year. Mm-hmm. I made these decisions. You made those decisions. So that's that. Everyone has those rights to decisions, and you're absolutely right. We should have that ability. But when you see what's going on in the country today, where you've got people that are running the country, the monitors of the monitors, so to speak, that, like you said, you do see these states that are compromised. I'm not doubting for a second. The Justice Department is releasing this information saying these states were compromised during these. They're finding it out. Why? Because they're looking at the traces of information that was left from the last previous administrations that covered it all up. You don't think for a second how deep this goes? We're seeing how deep this goes. $1.4 billion.
So you're talking about Medicare, yeah.
Yes, and Medicaid fraud from one place, California.
No.
Or is it from multiple places? It's from
multiple places, yeah,
okay,
yeah. But 600 million of that, yeah. Well, it's the biggest state with the largest economy.
Oh, yeah,
so.
of course, right?
But I'm not saying that it's okay. I really want to be clear about that.
No, I know that. It
was California. It was California, Texas, Georgia, Arizona, and like one or two other states. But collectively, the lion's share is definitely California for sure. So
when you see stuff like that, you then begin to understand why the middle class are struggling, because that's why. But look, I mean, you're getting taxed to death every which way you go. You're getting every single time you spend your money, you are taxed. So you're taxed when you earned it, you tax when you spend it, you tax when you save it, you tax when you grow it. Len, tell me a way or where a time that you don't get taxed.
No, you're right.
So the middle class, and by the way, you're absolutely, look, W-2 people and high income earners get killed. They get absolutely killed. And no one teaches them or shows them a way to get around it or how to save themselves from doing it. They get absolutely annihilated. So then we look at this and we go, oh, the middle class, we need all of this to grow and we need a thriving middle class and it's hard to do it. Okay, well then let's stop spending so much freaking money.
I agree.
Let's stop the social programs and get them within reason and stop the fraud. But see, when we go to do that, we're fascists.
Okay.
See, when people see the problem today, Len, is that the other side that's been monitoring everything for so long and been running things for so long, the Karen Basses and the Newsoms and the Bidens and the Kamalas and on the other side of that, Len, is the Dick Cheneys and the Bushes and all those guys and the Lindsey Grahams that have used it not for social programs and scum off the top and been all that way. They've been a little bit more decent. At least they did it through crony capitalism. Okay. At least they did it through some shady business deals and other people profited from it. Middle class people probably too. At least they gave opportunity back. These people that run this country that are elected officials, they don't play by the same rules that we have to play by. So they have in so many different ways created the problem that we're in. They have created this problem. And then the solution is, Len, is what? Well, let's just put another program on top of another program, on top of another program, on top of another program. And we all know that when we're trying to fix something, the best solution is eliminate. Get back to when it worked best.
I
and
think
we can't do that. It's so convoluted now. So yeah, I get it. You're right. You're absolutely right. We should have a scalable middle class. But right now, it's so difficult. I mean, think about it. Spencer Pratt is being, it's so disgusting, Len. TMZ is gross, by the way. They're attacking Spencer Pratt and scrutinizing him, right? And I'm like going, I wish that TMZ would have this level of scrutiny over Karen Bass and all the other crap that's been going on in California. Like, can TMZ be scrutinous about the high-speed rail authority and the billions of dollars that have gone on there, the $20 billion lost?
It's not as sexy.
Of course it's not as sexy. Of course it's not. So shame on TMZ. They're just the same as Rupert Murdoch. So they should never be able to criticize Rupert Murdoch. And by the way, I don't criticize anything these guys do. They got to sell papers, right? But Spencer Pratt's going to win. And the reason why he's going to win is because so many people are waking up and they're seeing how asininely corrupt and how disgusting these people are. They are. It is true.
Well, so, I want to jump back to the point about
how can you trust the
idea of the 1.4 billion and the impact, because you touched on a point
because that's
really
middle
important.
Class, Len. That's the middle class, right?
Here's the problem.
That's the money.
Here's the challenge: is that you have education, Social Security, Medicare, defense. Those are the main programs that are taking up the lion's share of the tax revenue that, that's spent outside of servicing the debt. And so because of those, they're important. But the problem is to your point, this is where we agree, is that the government is not efficient. And so I believe, I wish, because one of the things that Elon Musk said is that he went in and he started looking at the inefficiencies of the government. He said, this isn't fixable. This isn't fixable, not under the current system. And I think what happened is people really did a bad job in vilifying Elon Musk, but I think Trump did a bad job, or however Elon came into office. I think the role that he had was fantastic and necessary. I think the way in which he was appointed, it looked like a sweetheart deal that he brought in his friend.
I can agree with you on that. I can agree with you on that. So, I can agree with the optics look bad. I get it.
Yeah.
But desperate times call for desperate measures. It was a fog of war decision.
But the problem is that when you have bad optics, it gives the opposition the opportunity to capitalize on that. And because Elon Musk is a household name, it brings in clicks. So when it brings in clicks, what are the news outlets? They're going to cover that story ad nauseum. Fox is going to say, hey, this is a good thing. We need to go and lay off people. CNN's going to come in and saying this is a bad thing. Listen to Karen, who lost her job, and Tom, who's not going to be able to take care of his family, and all of these sob stories. And so then you've got both sides that are coming at this impasse, and the problem still exists. The problem is that the government is inefficient. Like, for example, you have the California government where, at the county offices, you've got, supervisors. I was sitting on, because I work with one of the county governmental systems with my business. I'm one of the vendors for them. And so they had a presentation that was an hour and 20 minutes. They had 10 people each presenting for like 3 minutes. And I'm like, if you were a business, dude, you'd be out of business because you're so top heavy. And so it just shows the inefficiencies. That's the point. These people
sit in classrooms and pass tests.
We think like business people, because if you don't run at razor thin margins, you'll be out of business. Whereas government, they can just take in taxes and just hire more people and give more people jobs. And that's where you get the opportunity for the waste, fraud, and abuse. And so I want to jump into the segue, which is, like what happened with this moratorium and what that means for California, because, I'm on the healthcare side. So what JD Vance is saying is, look, new home care agencies and hospice agencies coming on board, you're not going to be able to take on any new clients and get paid through Medicare, because we've got to take a look for the next 6 months about all of this waste, fraud, and abuse. And so thankfully, I'm on the home care side, so I'm non-medical. So all of our patients they pay out of pocket. We don't get any Medicare or anything like that. And so
because it's more of a luxury service.
It is. And the thing is that some of the
self healthcare, you're dictating the level of health, right?
You're not.
Which is why HSAs are so important.
Exactly. So the issue that happened, just to give some background here, with the hospice, is that they would have fake addresses, fake clients. And so, like, for example, they would go to a doctor and say, hey, I'll pay you $500 per referral. They send them a referral, but then for that $500, you can claim fake hours, you can claim fake days, and you can rack up money over and over, because all you're doing is you're just billing. And so because the effective oversight wasn't there, it makes it bad for everybody else. So that new home care agency, that new home health agency, that new hospice care company that comes on board, they can't even do business right now because other people and the bad actors made it terrible for everybody. So I don't blame JD Vance for putting a halt on any of it until they figure out how to find the waste, fraud, and abuse. But the problem is that people will be hurt. And I just think that we need to be more efficient. Not his fault. No, it's not. I'm not blaming him. It's the
fault of the people that allowed it to get into this situation,
and the people who did it too. So
right. The problem though is that in where we're at right now is that, and this is the same situation. I know you're going to be angry at me about this, Len, but I think it's the same situation as Iran. We allowed Iran to get to this point, and not just us, meaning the United States. I'm talking the whole world. This is everybody's fault. Just like this is everybody's fault that's going on in California, because we all sat back and watched and let these people, mostly California voters, and allow these people to do this stuff. So how is it that we vilify then the people that go in there to get to clean up the job?
No, I agree. I just want to be clear. I'm not vilifying him for calling a moratorium.
No, I know that. But a lot of people are, and a lot of the media, like it's just like the Cuba thing. Woe is me. The Cuban people are suffering now because of the U.S. blockade. No, they're suffering because of communism. They're suffering because of communism.
That's part of it. But the United States is definitely contributing and exacerbating that situation. It's a hard
under the guise of what? Liberation? Because we're exacerbating it because we're liberating them?
Well, no. The liberation part hasn't happened. And the only way that liberation will happen is if the Cuban government, under all of the pressure, says, hey, look, no mas, man, we can't take this anymore. We'll go ahead and we'll play ball. But then that means the end of their regime. And so I understand
But aren't they ultra realistic and good for the people though? Aren't they aren't they saintly? Like they're
you know better than that. And I know you're saying that sarcastically.
Right, but that's what all of these people protesting are painting them as.
Yes, and I understand, and I think what's happening is
did you know more than 100? Did you know more human beings were killed and murdered under communism and socialism than all wars combined?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, when you look at under Mao, I mean, 45 to 50 million people died because of starvation and famine. So no, you have a very good point. But the same effect is happening with Cuba right now. They're going to starve right now because the oil embargo that's happened with Venezuela and the lack of resources that they're going to get, something has to change, because the problem is that when there's no easy answer, because when the United States decides to enforce all of these sanctions, sanctions, it's not the people at the top who suffer. It's the people, the everyday common folk are the ones who ends up suffering. And that's really sad because, the people at the top, they're like, look, we're going to get our food. We're going to have our shelter. We're going to live our life. So we don't have to succumb to your sanctions. And the only reason why they would change their course is that they actually get a heart for the people. And if they don't have a heart for the people, nothing changes. So,
well, and there enters America where anybody can come here and not starve.
Well,
because realistically, a lot of stories of people that come here with nothing and now they're ballers. They're making it. So that's the promise of America. So that's really what we should be highlighting here. We should be going, hey, look, in America, you could still come here with nothing and become something. But instead we're going, oh, America's so evil. No, America's not evil. We're not. I'm sorry. There's far more evil things that are going on in the world. It's just you're being taught to hate America today. And that's what's horrible about this stuff.
Yeah. And I think the rhetoric needs to, and I've said this over and over, and I will say it again, the rhetoric on both sides needs to calm down because, like, for example, when you had JD Vance substantiating why they're taking this action, he uses divisive language to justify why he's doing it. I think his reason for doing it is correct, but the language that he uses, because people understand you're going to get my soundbite. And so I want to make sure that my soundbite is crisp and that it's clear and that it stings so that the people who agree with me, it's like, yeah, go get them. You're fighting for me. And the people who disagree, you've just given them fodder to be able to throw back at you. So, it's very difficult, man. I want to transition, man, talking about just terrible people who live on the planet and people who should be vilified are pedophiles that are out there. And, we've talked about Jeffrey Epstein over and over and over, but, we were talking about the Disney Cruise Line in San Diego. And so considering the fact that you are from San Diego before you moved to Texas, man, this is in your backyard, man. So what's on your mind about the Disney Cruise Line?
I think Disney as a whole, an organization, is just rotten.
Okay.
And like when you go back and you look, did you ever see what was it? They did a documentary on Netflix. I think it's Netflix. I don't remember which one it was, Len, but it's about Nickelodeon. Have you seen that one?
Where it has like the kid actors and what ended up happening to them later on in life.
That stuff. And the main guy, I don't mind, his name's escaping me right now. You ought to go watch it if you haven't watched it, because it's pretty telling. But I feel like almost all of these guys are in the same camp. Nickelodeons, the Disneys, all of these guys, because it's just been an absolute disgusting disgrace of what's happening with all these. And I think there's just a massive pedophile ring. I don't know if it's just always been going on or if it's just because of social media, but you seem to see like just the pedophilia stuff is just rampant. And I just don't understand it. I'm not trying to understand it. And I'm a parent, so I have to be on guard about it because I have young children and they're online. And it just seems to me like it's just more and more rampant, but it also is becoming more and more accepted, where it's just like becoming normalized. And Disney and it's not just San Diego. I mean, have you Googled it, like all the different places, like these Disney cruises and these Disney's, and nobody's even really talking about it, but just all the different ports and all the different stings and stuff that they've arrested people at for this. It's rampant. It's absolutely rampant. Yeah. And I think they're all guilty by association. I think it's probably as rampant, if not more rampant, than the Boy Scout stuff. Did you ever seen that stuff too? The Boy Scouts and the
absolutely.
Boy Scout stuff, right? And the Catholic Church stuff, right? And I'm not trying to come down on anything, but these are all organizations that purport themselves to be champions of children. And let's allow this product, this really great product for parents, for their children. And in reality, you got to be worried. But having said all of that, I don't blame them. And what I mean by that is that I mostly blame parents. And I'm not trying to say that this nothing can happen and you because nothing's 100% certain. But a lot of this stuff is just like where you hear these people say, "Oh, my son and my daughter, we sent him to go off on this thing. Hell no. No. I'm sorry. No. And as much as you, and Len, I know this is close to home for you because you've dealt with stuff before, but you could try as much as you want and try to shield your children. You just, as a parent, you have to tell them about these things, and you have to warn them about these things, and you have to communicate with them about these things, because there are a lot of times when they're not in the nest with you. Mm-hmm. And there are predators everywhere. Every freaking where there are predators. There are wolves, there are predators. But the thing that pisses me off the most about Disney is that Disney is the freaking devil in the white nightgown. Disney purports itself to be this saint and like, oh, it's a safe place. And you go to drop your kids off or to put your kids in, just like, the altar boy scandal stuff. This is a safe thing to do for your kids. And then all of a sudden you find out what's really happening. To me, I can't stand when it's done that way, mm-hmm. when it's nefarious like that. And for Disney to operate that way, that's why I love what Ron DeSantis did with Disney in Florida. I think it's freaking awesome. And Disney got his just freaking deserves there. But San Diego's weird now, dude. San Diego is kind of like, it's I don't want to say the word, but it's kind of, Disney's like a sex worker now. I mean, they're unfortunately, it's very left leaning now. It's not conservative anymore. And they're going to sell their souls to whoever's going to want to develop and do whatever they want in that area.
Well, I want to give a couple of facts just so we can make sure we put some context. And so CBP detained 28 workers across 8 ships in San Diego. And
8 ships, Len.
There were 8 ships. There were 8 ships. Yeah. And so it said that 27 were tied to sexual exploitation material activity, and about somewhere between more than 10 and less than 15 of them were Disney workers. And so Disney was a part of it, but that's where the fake media comes and they make something more than what it is. And so on the one hand, I don't want to say that Disney is innocent here, but on the other hand, I don't want to paint Disney as where all of these 28 people come off of one ship and it's all a Disney ship. Now, there were 8 ships. So when Disney came to port in San Diego, there were 7 other ships. And when the CBP is the Customs Border Protection, so they come in and they have conversations, and they found that 28 people had either some type of activity where they're watching pedophilia with children or some type of crimes that are being done to children. And about at least 10 of them were on the Disney cruise line. And so
you don't think that's the tip of the iceberg?
I think it's enough information there that warrants a much more thorough investigation, along with the Epstein files along
with all of it,
because
all of it.
Because to me, when we look at
files, will never see the light of day.
See, and that's the thing, because it's the one topic where you and I, as much as we disagree on so many different topics, the one topic that you and I are lockstep in is that we don't like people who hurt children, and we don't like institutions that cover up for people that hurt children. And unfortunately, I agree with you that we're never really going to find out what happened to Epstein. There was just
too many people, too many powerful people on that list.
And that's a crying shame, man, because I think everybody that's connected to it needs to go down, along with the person who's at the bottom of a ship watching all of this stuff with kids. I think they all need to be held to account, man. And so I think leaving on a fact that we can both agree is a good place to part ways, man. And so
I think so too.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen out there in California. Did you see how it looks 900 million or something? Or what? Not 900 million. What was it? I shared something for you today, Len. I wanted to talk to you about it because I'm just interested to see what you're thinking is going to happen on this. Let me see. Where did I save it at? It was part of, they're freaking out right now. And Newsom came. I know we weren't supposed to talk about this, but I wanted to ask you. There it is. I saved it. If it loads up here, it says California sees massive surge in Republican voters as more than 900,000 ballots have already been returned. Whoa!
Not surprised.
Whoa!
Well, that's good, man. I think anything to get more voters out. I think there's some credence to the idea of compulsory voting. I know it'll never happen, and I don't think it's the right thing to do, but someone could make a good, valid argument for making voting a necessity. But you know what I mean? Because then you really get a representation of what people,
like jury duty.
Yeah.
That ought to be, but then again, it's like freedom of choice. You don't have to vote. You don't have to,
Exactly.
So that's the American principle of ideal there.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
so that's
why
you're
required to vote. Imagine the manipulation there if you're required to vote. Oh my God. Voter intimidation.
Yes.
Talk about voter intimidation there.
Getting
buying votes.
Everybody really having a voice. And, but of course, the circumstances under which compulsory voting would happen, it would have to be so ideal. That'll never happen in reality. But anyway, well, it's good, man. I think that more Republicans coming out, but California has so many people. So, it's a really blue state. So I don't ever see California switching, but hey, man, it's good.
It's going to be awesome when it does.
It'll never happen. Not in Cali. But we'll see. Well, hey, man, it's always great. And for those of you that are watching, find people that you disagree with, have conversations with them, find a way to get to know them and not just them for their views. And if you liked what we had, give us a like. And if you didn't, give us a comment. And if you liked what we had to say, give us a comment as well. We want to hear from you because the more people who like and comment gives us information to give us an idea of what you want to hear about. And our goal is to give you what you want to hear and at the same time be true to who we are. And so with that being said, Chris, it's always a pleasure having a conversation with you, and see you next week.
Likewise, Len.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Family Office.